When I was 17, I moved to college 2 hours away from home and took residence in the dorms on campus. The dorms were not run through the school, but through a management company. There were a lot of safety problems in the dorms as a result of this: assaults, ODs, drugs, shootings right outside, etc. I am a 100 pounds female, so I always watched out for serious situations around me. Everything was great. I had some awful roommates, but I was mostly left alone. One day in September, I was leaving for class early in the morning when I spotted a condom taped to my name tag on the door. It had a note that said, "Call me, hugs and kisses," with some random phone number. I told the RAs and nothing came of it. I just thought it was some random prank pulled by one of the guys on the floor. Things went south with my roommates, mostly because of my night terrors scaring them, even though I warned them before we even agreed to be roommates. So I was moved into a 2-bedroom dorm with my new roommate Jay. We each had our own room. After a week of living there, I started noticing that things were appearing in the living room while we were sleeping. I asked Jay about it, and she vehemently denied it was her. One day we noticed that the lock on the front door did not lock properly. If you pulled on the lock and twisted the handle at the same time, the door would come open. Around the same time, I started getting Snapchats of inappropriate things, vague threats, and offers for great sex. I would get ones that would say things like, "You look great today," with that specific article of clothing I was wearing. I filed a report to the dorms to get the lock fixed, but it took 4 months, 8 complaints, threat of legal action, and my friend D yelling at them to get any action. We got our door fixed, but the presence still appeared outside of the door with notes for me. I was still receiving Snapchats, but I moved out of the dorms into an apartment with my then boyfriend. The Snapchats continued, then I started getting calls at my work. I worked for the dean's office of my college, and I was in charge of answering phones. Every day I would get 3 or more calls from randomly generated numbers. I would answer the phone and hear heavy breathing for a few seconds, then they would hang up. I thought it was just some 12-year-old pranking our office until my coworker got a call. She answered with her name, and the person on the line asked if they could speak with me. Thinking it was one of the deans that I had been working with, she forwarded it to my phone. I answered and I received the same heavy breathing and hang up. I reported it to my boss. She did nothing. One of the deans overheard the conversation and reported it to Title IX. Oh boy, talking to them was a mistake. After the meeting with them, the threats started getting worse, and this person found me in my new apartment. One day in December, I was dog sitting 2 wonderful dogs who hated other dogs and would bark at them on sight. It was around 11 p.m. and I decided to take them out before bed. We get outside. To the right of me is a bunch of thick trees that are hard to see through. I start to take the girls to the grass on the left. They start growling and barking at something in the trees. Thinking it's another dog, I try to pull them away, but they will not budge. I glance over and out of the trees comes a tall man, but the weird thing is he is wearing a Michael Myers-like mask. He starts rushing towards me. The dogs get between me and him. He stops. I run up the stairs behind me into the apartment as he is disappearing into the trees again. Stupidly, I don't call the police, but I see him one more time before I move to my new apartment. Things are quiet for a while. My boyfriend and I break up, and I spend the first few days in the new apartment alone. Come to find out, the window that can be accessed from the ground doesn't lock. One morning I wake up. Everything seems normal. I check the mirror to do my hair for work. I have a bald spot. My head was shaved in the middle of the night. I find my hair tied up in knots in an envelope. I immediately call the police. They do an investigation, find the window was broken, but can't find anything to figure out who it was that came into my apartment. They asked me to compile a list of everything that was missing, and the only thing gone other than my hair was 3 pairs of dirty underwear. An investigation found no one. I have since moved. I no longer answer phones at my work, and I keep bear spray next to my bed at all times. One day my best friend and I were taking a shortcut to her house. It goes past a few houses and through a small area of woods, crossing a 2 feet wide creek. This particular day, I was wearing one of those jackets that had earbuds as the strings. As we were passing one of the houses, a couple big dogs come running from it, jumping on us and obviously just wanting to play. The owner of the house comes out, and I noticed right away that he was acting really fidgety and nervous, saying stuff about the dogs like, "Oh, it's okay, they're nice, don't worry." We made small talk with him about the dogs for a few minutes and turned around to leave. About a minute or so later, we arrived at the small creek when I noticed that one of the rubber earbuds that was on my jacket was gone, and I insisted on going back to look for it. The guy came back out again and offered to help us. He asked what the material was made of, and I said it was made of rubber. We made small talk again, I think about the jacket and how cool it was. Anyway, he said he was going to be right back with his metal detector. He walked away towards his shed, and I said to my friend, "Why does he need a metal detector? The earbud is made of rubber." Next thing you know, he's coming back with, I shit you not, a rifle, and he is literally running towards us. When I'm telling you we ran, we ran. When we got to safety, past the creek and near her house, I was telling her we needed to call 911. She insisted that we not do that because her parents would be mad at her. I explained to her with urgency why it's important we called the cops, but she refused and I couldn't force her. I didn't call because I didn't want to do it alone, plus it would have been my first time calling them. I can't remember when/if I told my parents that night what happened, but when I told them, they gaslit me and said I was overreacting, that I didn't really see that. I still think about this damn near every day and it haunts me. The second time was, again, in 5th grade, taking place after the first story, but I'm not sure how long after. The friend from the previous story lived near a cemetery, about a 5-minute walk from her house. It was a big cemetery and we liked to walk around it a lot, plus behind the cemetery was a shortcut through the woods to a big park, which was coincidentally right next to our school. This day we were also with another good friend of ours. We were just walking around the cemetery this day when all of a sudden, a blue truck pulls up next to us in the row next to where we were walking, about 10 feet away or so, not far. I could see 2 guys were in it literally just staring at us, and I again got that weird feeling I got with the first guy. This is hard to explain, but right before the shortcut in the woods is a fence with a cutout that leads to a field of grass and a hill next to it that leads into the neighborhood where my other friend lived. The hill was really a bunch of dead grass, weeds, sticks, cattails, etc. Anyway, I told my friends I had a bad feeling about these guys, that they were staring at us and quite literally slowly following us with the truck. We booked it to that grass field and through that hill. I had all sorts of cuts and gashes from all the shit that we were running through. When we got to the top of the hill, we turned around and the truck was parked at the top of the hill on the other side, with both men outside of it holding guns. I truly believed they were coming after us, and they were visibly mad that we got away from them. I knew they were after us because they had to have driven through the cutout in the fence, amongst the gut feelings and just the entire situation. We ran to my friend's house, noticed her parents, who truly didn't seem too worried, and drove my other friend and me home. I don't even remember if I told my parents about this time since they gaslit me when I told them about the last time. I just can't shake the fact that this shit really happened when I was in 5th grade. I also can't believe how lightly my parents took the situation. I'm honestly traumatized about what happened and I still think about it a lot. Last night, I went to the auto parts store because my car broke down. Thank God it was my weekend. I saw the price of the part and had to come back to get it after getting the funds. Went back and picked up the part one needed. It was around 9:30 p.m., so it was dark out. I was paying for my thing and an employee from another store was saying bye to the cashier helping me. The cashier said, "Thanks for coming by," and the guy left. After some small talk with the cashier, I pay for my part and dip out. Headed to my car parked right outside the door, and the other employee said something I can't recall. He asked for my name, gave a shortened version. I looked at his name tag, said his name, and shook his hand because he was going in for the shake. He said I was really cute, told him I appreciate that, and we got in our cars, parked right next to each other with a spot in between. He started backing out while I was looking behind me before doing the same. Looked to the right, clear, then to the left, and saw a dude looking over his shoulder, breaking his neck, staring at me. I was surprised and uncomfortable, so I snapped my head back and acted like I went to look to the right again. I pulled out and was behind him. He didn't put his blinker on to turn, but when he pulled to the main road, he put his hazards on and stopped on the right side of the road. I thought, is this man gonna follow me right now? Took note of what the car looked like, color, type of car, distinct sticker on the bumper, just in case. I pulled out, past him, and checked my rear view mirror. He was still there with his hazards, so I was like, nah, just being paranoid. Then he started driving. He was quite a ways behind me, but eventually he came up closer, still didn't think too much. He drove past me on the passenger side, and I kept my eyes forward because I'm not looking at this dude after the weird shit he did in the lot. Thankfully, this was right before a light where the two lanes merge into one, and he passed me and got in front. I was still behind him, but for safety purposes, I turned right at the next light to go on a different road in the opposite direction of home. Didn't want someone to know the general location of my home because I'm outside all the time. Mind you, the auto parts store is like 7 minutes from my house. As I make the turn, this dude puts his emergency lights on again and pulls to the side of the road. There wasn't a parking lot for him to turn and follow me, thank God, but I kept driving, checking my rear view, seeing if he'll pop up, and thank God he didn't. I was afraid he would see me driving across the main road to get to my house because we started on the main road, but thankfully not. I've been keeping an eye out for his car and him since then. Told my boyfriend about it and described the car just in case. Hopefully I don't see this guy around. Thankfully, I was using a family member's car who lives about 15 minutes away, so he doesn't know what my personal car looks like.